Chavre, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmus und beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. In all honesty, I would reckon that every single one of us is thinking the same thoughts, and that's about what happened this Sunday night in Sydney, Australia. I'm talking to you from Melbourne. Many of my Talmidim have called me and contacted me this week. Students that I had that learned by me years ago and said, Rabbi, we need to hear words of chizuk. On the one hand, we're crushed, we're shocked, we're shattered, we're broken, and there are no words to say. As is known, the pasuk Vayidem Aron, sometimes there's an event where we're actually left speechless and there's nothing to say. And that is the only response. But on the other hand, it's a couple of days later, and von jeder Zach, as the Baal Shem Tov taught us, von jeder Zach, was a Yid zet the head, from every single thing that a Jew sees or hears, he has to take a lesson in Avodas Hashem. So we have to ask ourselves, what is the lesson from what happened on Sunday? What kind of message is it to us? And how can we use this message to improve ourselves and to bring more benefit to the world? So before we get to it, and also obviously the word of the Alter Rebbe, Medaf Leben, with the Parsha Shavua, that means there's definitely a connection from this week's Parsha to the events of what happened. First, we'll start with Tzedakah. This year, today, is in honor of the Kedoshim, all of the Kedoshim, and also, I can't say they need an Aliyah Neshama, but the shir is in honor of the Kedoshim, and also in honor of the people that are injured right now, the need a refuah shalema. So here's the tzedakah. The day of tzedakah shemakarev segula Mashiach shall come now. We'll say a prayer, and this is the prayer that we say when we light the Chanukah menorah. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam she'asa nisim la'avoseinu. So we give a blessing to Hashem that Hashem has made miracles for our forefathers in those days and also in our time. And even though it's a tragedy beyond words and a destruction beyond words and a loss, but there's also an element that we have to see some sort of positivity in it and to take a lesson. It's a message. There are miracles sometimes that we see the results in a good way, in a clear way, and sometimes there are miracles that it could even be considered a greater miracle, like when a person decides to not get angry when something happens. Or, I'm not talking about this event, I'm saying in general, when a person exercises a bit of self-control and self-restraint, somebody tells him a word of criticism and he decides he's not going to respond. That's also a miracle. A miracle of the heart. So, it means miracles on every single level and every single interpretation. A miracle on a global scale in the world for the entire Jewish nation, but it also means a miracle on a personal level. Something going on in your life where you're never able to reach deep down into yourself and to reveal deeper faculties. And Hashem should help you to be able to do that too. Let's start with the Parsha Shavua. This week's Parsha, in Parshas Mikeitz, we have the story that starts in Vayeshev, Mikeitz, Vayigash, Vayichi. It's one long story. And Yosef has been sold by his brothers. He's a slave. He's been falsely imprisoned, framed. And then he gets released from prison in this week's Parsha. And he meets up with his brothers. And they need food. And he takes Shimon as a hostage. and he tells the brothers that as long as they don't bring back Binyamin, they won't be able to get back Shimon, and they won't be able to get more food. That's the basic story. Now, in the dialogue between Yehuda and Yaakov, Yaakov does not want to send Binyamin. He's already terrified that Yosef has Shimon. Now you're going to take down Binyamin. Binyamin's also going to get lost. That's what it seems like when you read the Psukim on a simple level. So, to make a long story short, in the end, Yehuda convinces his father that we have to take Binyamin. And he says the words, Anoichi ervenu miyodi, Anoichi ervenu, miyodi tevakshenu, im lo yevesev elecha, v'yitzaktev lefanecha, v'chatosi l'cha kol hayomim. This is where, even though there's the famous words, which I'm going to say from Parshas Vayigash, but the actual place where he says, I will guarantee him of my own hand, you can demand him. If I do not bring him back to you and stand him before you, then I will have sinned to you for all time. And Rashi says over here, what does it mean? I will have sinned for you for all time, for the world to come. Now this is repeated in the next week's Parsha, when Yehuda is speaking to Yosef, and he tells him why he's so invested and why he's so involved in bringing back bringing back Shimon and also Binyamin, obviously. And I'll go back to the beginning of Vayigash in a second, that Yehuda is ready to go all out, whatever it takes. Failure is not an option. Do whatever it takes, till the ultimate Mesiras Nefesh, to pay the ultimate price. But he tells Yosef, and these are the famous words, and it's a famous Sikha of the Rebbe, what I'm speaking about now, in Chelik Aleph, Parshas Vayigash, if I remember correctly, and Yehuda says, Ki avdecha orev hasanar, because your servant took responsibility for the youth, for Binyamin. And on Rashi over there, he repeats similar to what he says in our Parsha, Ki avdecha orev hasanar, because your servant took responsibility for the youth. And he says, that's why he's more involved. And Vaninis Kasharti Bekesha Chozak, Lias Menuda B'Shnei Oilamus, to be banished in both worlds. This world and the world to come, should I fail to return him. And there's a Gemara in Makkas that brings out that this actually caused Yehuda problems even after Yehuda passed away, and even though he fulfilled the condition, Moshe Rabbeinu himself had to get involved to take care of Yehuda. See the Gemara in Makkas. But first I just want to bring you the Lashon from the Gemara before that, before it tells you how Moshe Rabbeinu had to take care of it. It said, Klolos Chacham Afil Al Tanai Hiba, the curse of a sage, even if it is stated conditionally. That means even if you didn't do the thing which you said, only if this happens to me, it comes to realization. And then it says, Nidui Al Tanai Tzorach Hafora. Ostracism, which this is what he means over here, banishment, requires nullification. And when Yehuda said that he's going to be banished from this world and the next world, it needed to be nullified, and Moshe Rabbeinu took care of that. And that's what it means over here in the Pasuk. By the way, I didn't make it clear before when I mentioned the Pasuk in Mikeitz, where the Pasuk has said, that's why Rashi says, Kol hayomim, all my days, means for all time, including Leilam Haba. So what do we see from this? That it was only Yehuda's words, that he was ready to go all out, no matter what, taking responsibility for Binyamin, did Yaakov accept to send Binyamin along. Now, what lesson is this the Rebbe takes from for this? Is the question is, we see from Rashi, see the beginning of Vayigash, that when it says Vayigash El Yehuda spoke very harshly, and he said, you want to really start a war right now? And the question the Rebbe asks is, How could Yehuda be ready to start a war where it seems like he's in the bunker of Yosef, he's in the headquarters of an entire nation, at that time the most powerful nation in the world, because they were the only ones that had the food to be able to take care of everybody. And nevertheless, Yosef is talking harshly, Yehuda is talking harshly, as if he's saying he's ready to go to the end. Are you ready to make a bloodbath over here? But he didn't even know if he's going to win. Because there's Yosef with his entire army. So there's a small band of Yehuda and his brothers, and they're facing an entire nation, an entire army. How can he even speak like that? And the Rebbe also brings from a medrash that even though Yehuda was very strong, and the medrash talks about it, it's a famous medrash, when you're young you learn about it, that how strong was Yehuda, that chamisha levushim hayalevish, if he would have 5 garments, nimma achas hoysaloi beliboy, one hair of his chest, this hair on his chest, if Yehuda would get angry, would pierce all the 5 layers of clothing. But then the Medrash said that when Yosef saw how Yehuda was getting a bit agitated and ready to go all out, the Medrash says that Yosef was sitting Amid al Even Shahaya Yeshav Olav. He stood from the stone pillar on which he was seated. Bad boy, he kicked that stone pillar. Vasu Gal Shel Tzreides. He made it into a pile, into a heap of pebbles. When Yehuda saw that, the Medrash says, Miyad Tomei Yehuda V'Oma Zeh Giber Mimeni. Yehuda was surprised. Something's really going on over here. This one, Yosef, is even stronger than me. That means he had to expect there was some divine powers over here. But in any case, so Yehuda saw what he was facing, but still, nevertheless, his approach, his attitude was, that's it, there's no other way. Win at all costs. Mesiras nefesh mamish. And why? Ki avdecha orev esanar. And here the Rebbe takes a lesson of chinuch. But before we get to that, let's talk about it in general. Ki avdecha orev esanar, because the servant has guaranteed the child. We know that in Judaism, we can make a connection of Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh B'Zeh. What I'd like to suggest, and the lesson and connected to what happened this week, is the 2 main points that we have to stress, and that's enlightenment and empathy. We're starting with the empathy. What is one of the secrets of Jewish survival? The Jews as one unit, as one body. The feeling of care and responsibility that we have for one another. Achdus. Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh B'Zeh. All of the Yidden feel responsible one for the other. There's no other nation, there's no other people that if something happens at the other end of the world, everybody feels it. Everybody's crying. Everybody feels the pain. It's well known Chassidus, and the Rebbe brings it down. I don't know what the original source is. There's the 3 meanings to the word Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh B'Zeh. First of all, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh B'Zeh Meloshen Taruvus. The Jewish nation is interlocked and intertwined. The word Taruvus means mixed, mingled. So why is it? This is the real inner explanation. Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh B'Zeh. Why does one Jew feel responsible for another Jew? Because Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh B'Zeh. Because we're one unit, one body. All the Jews are taruvos, mixed in together. We're one. From that comes another point. Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh B'Zeh. Orev could also mean mesikus, sweet. Because we're all really one. Acham anachnu. Av echad kulonu. What unites us is far greater than what divides us. So we're really one in essence. So really one Jew is sweet. Zis. Eine bei der Zweite. Was machst du, Bruder? How are you? And therefore comes Kol Yisrael, one is a guarantor for another. And what does it mean, the ultimate of a guarantor? All the way, all out, all in. And that's what we learn from these words of Yehuda, Ki avdecha orev asanar. First of all, we have to feel like that in general. One yid to another yid. Ki avdecha orev asanar. We have to look at every other person that we can bring benefit to, a help, that we feel connected and responsible. Like the Rebbe would say, every yid is a mashpia and a makabel. There's something you have to give to another person, that you have to offer to another person. To any person. You know Aleph, he does know Aleph, or some other way. And then there's also how that person helps you. So that's the first point. But it also is connected to Chinuch, Chanukah. The word Chanukah is connected to Chinuch. This is a long explanation, but also goes to the rededication of the temple after it became defiled. So therefore, the same thing, the Rebbe takes a lesson concerning Chinuch. Every parent, every educator, every teacher has to worry not only about the physical well-being of the child, but the spiritual well-being of the child. Just like when it comes to physical matters, the Rebbe says you don't want 50-50 gesund, you want 100% gesund. So too when it comes to spiritual health, you don't want 50-50, you want 100%. So that's how much you have to be vested in the future and the spiritual health of the Jewish nation, of another Jew, that you should feel ki avdecha orev asanar. And to what degree are you ready to implement that the truths that are important for the Jewish nation should continue? You're going to invest 110%. B'chol ma'idecha. As we see by Yehuda, that even though he's facing some adversary which it didn't make any sense whatsoever, he's going to be able to overcome it, but because he gave his word, he pledged allegiance, so that's it, it's all in. So that's where we take the lesson from Parshas Mikeitz, because it's actually in this week's Parsha where he pledges the allegiance and he tells his father that he's going to go all in. What's the connection to Chanukah? So I mentioned the Sikh and Chelik Lamed Hey last week, where the Rebbe gets into the discussion about Mesiras Nefesh. We connected it to what happened last week, that Yosef goes out to find his brothers, even though it was a question that he knew his life was in danger. And the Rebbe in that Sikha connects to Chanukah. And now I want to again talk about it in connection to Chanukah. See the Sikha over there. What is the nature and the definition of the Mesiras Nefesh and Chanukah? And the Rebbe has a question that how can we emphasize in the prayer of Anir Salolu that the miracle came al yidei koyanecha hagdoshim. Why is that important? So one aspect of the miracle is they found the flask of oil that was pure. Obviously, that's al yidei koyanecha hagdoshim. But there's a whole other aspect to it. The wars were fought by the Koyanecha Hagdoshim. Matisyo was a Kohen. And the Rebbe explains that it's important to remember there's a Kohen in every single one of us that stands for truth, that stands for spiritual authenticity, that stands for something which is not being corrupted and contaminated. And the person who wants to be connected to this thing has to be ready to go ad Mesiras Nefesh. And this is what he says. He brings a lashon from the Kesef Mishnah. See the sikh over there for more, but one thing that what I want to take out of it is Im hu adam godel v'chosid yireh shamayim. If the person is a great person who's pious and God-fearing, v'roya shader porutz bekach, and he sees there's some sort of weakness in the spirituality in a bad way, he's allowed to go and self-sacrifice in order that the nations should see it and learn. And now we're coming to the point of enlightenment, which is Chanukah, which is spreading the light and kindling the light, and the Mesiras Nefesh of Chanukah. We see in the story over here of the Shliach, Eli Schlanger, Yaakov Levitan. Yaakov Levitan I didn't know at all, Eli Schlanger I knew slightly, and then Ruvain Morrison, who lived in Melbourne. He used to live in Sydney, but he lived in Melbourne. Him I knew more, closer. So they all went on Mesiras Nefesh. As the story is saying that Eli Schlanger was like pleading with the gunman, please, don't do this. Why are you doing this? Ruvain Morrison threw a bottle or a rock or something at the shooters to distract them, to save lives. And the point is that through their Mesiras Nefesh, they actually saved lives. But also, if I may say so, and again, there's no reason why this happened. We're not giving a reason why this happened, but we're looking at it after the fact, and we want to bring out a certain point, if I may say so. There's a sikha from the Rebbe in Tovshin Chov Daled, Parshas Mikeitz, where the Rebbe brings a Gemara, and the Gemara says, there's two Gemaras, there's a Gemara in Shabbos, and there's a Gemara in Menachos, where it says as follows. I'm quoting from the Gemara in Menachos, where it says that Hashem said that you shall light the menorah michutz laparechus ha'eidos ba'oil moed. The candelabra was lit outside the curtain of the testimony. That's called parechus ha'eidos ba'oil moed, in the tent of the meeting. The Gemara says it's called parechus ha'eidos outside the curtain of the testimony. Why is it called parechus ha'eidos? Eidos means witness, testimony. And the Gemara says about the menorah, eidosu l'chol boi olam shashchina shoyre b'Yisrael. The candelabra was testimony to all of humanity that the divine presence rests among the Jewish people. The Gemara says it in Shabbos also. There's more details to this. How exactly? Look up the Gemaras. The Rebbe connects this statement that the Gemara is talking about the candelabra that was in the Beis HaMikdash. He connects it to Chanukah. About Chanukah and the Chanukah lighting, we could also say, eidosu l'chol boi olam shashchina shoyra b'Yisrael. It's a witness to all of humanity that the divine presence rests among the Jewish people. My friends, I don't think there was ever in the history of the Jewish nation an event of Presumei Nisa, even though we didn't see the Nes, but the spreading of the idea of the preciousness, of the uniqueness of the Jewish people and the survival of the Jewish people as there ever was demonstrated this week. The entire world, from Pakistan, Afghanistan, Turkey, wherever, was focused on the story of Chanukah and on the massacre. Hashem Yirachim L'Tokum Pamayim Tzara. But we could definitely say, eidosu l'chol boi olam shashchina shoyre b'Yisrael. Here we see the contrast. You have killers, murderers, Yimach Shemam, and the fact, the contrast that should be a father and a son. How revolting is that? How reprehensible is that? How abominable is that? A father educating a child to hate and to kill. So we see chinuch, a chinuch of morals and values, of selflessness, bringing benefit and light to others. And then we have a chinuch that's warped and twisted and perverted, that's evil, that kills innocent people, from 80-plus-year-old people, Holocaust survivors, to a 10-year-old girl, and 2-month-old babies that are wounded with shrapnel that have to be in the hospital. Eidosu L'chol boy olam shchashchina shayla b'Yisrael. That we have Yidden, Kedoshim, like Eli Schlanger and Reuven Morrison, that are absolutely selfless and give of themselves totally to bring benefit and are beacons of light and kindle menorahs that bring light and help only for others, in contrast to the opposite. Symbols of darkness, symbols of hate, symbols of destruction and evil. And this is the lesson. The two lessons that we have to take from this past week. One lesson is a lesson of enlightenment, more kindling of the menorahs, more light. I don't want to get into what everyone's talking about now. Is it going to make a difference? What Australia should do, what the world should do, hate and anti-Semitism. Listen, I'm just a simple guy, but what I have to say is, haters are going to hate. But one thing, stick to the truth. I'm a Jew and I'm proud. Keep on shedding the light. Keep on lighting candles. Keep on saying whatever the truth is. Torah oir, Torah's emes. That's what our job is. Add more light. And add more light means truth. Just keep on saying the truth. People that are interested will accept the truth sooner or later. But all the deniers in the world and all the darkness in the world cannot cover up on a bit of light and a bit of truth. And this is important on two levels: for the world, but also for Jewish students, Jewish children. They have to keep on hearing the truth. In the story that happened, many people were talking about how their children were scared and what's going to happen now, and they're asking, the children, the youth are asking for the light, for the menorah. They don't want to see these things stopping. The older people that have more of a consciousness and awareness of the dangers start having questions. Should we still do this event? Shouldn't we not do this event? And the children are crying out and saying, we need to keep on having the light and the truth to battle the darkness. We're not going to change. So that's the message of enlightenment from the light of Chanukah. And then there's the enlightenment, the message of empathy. As we saw by the shluchim, by the rabbis, they're living their lives of service to others. Reuven Morrison, as we said before. And the message from Yehuda, Ki avdecha orev esanar. As long as the Jewish nation will project these feelings of Aleph, Ches, Dalet, Vav, Sof, of Achdus, it will make the Jews stronger and stronger, as we've seen from this week. There were the first responders that were involved, and some of them were injured. Anyways, l'chaim, they should help. Again, all those that are the victims down in the hospital should have a refuah shleima take from Yad Mamish. We should take the strength from this holiday of Chanukah to increase in light and increase in the Achdus. And the Eibusha should help that if we do our thing of increasing the light and increasing in the Achdus, will bring about the Gula, Mikeitz Vashleima, taken from Yad Mamish, Mashiach now. Posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, your man in Melbourne.